And welcome to our webinar today entitled Simplifying Microsoft Teams with SIPPIO. Better than a calling plan, simpler than direct routing. My name is Don Wisdom. I'm president of Datalink Networks, and we are pleased to have all of you attend this webinar today. This is presented by SIPPIO, which is a Teams partner that enables communication both in the United States and throughout the world. Poly, which is a leading Teams equipment provider, and Datalink Networks, a Microsoft Gold Partner and Teams Communication Gold Partner. So let's take a look today at our agenda. We're going to cover in the agenda the evolution of communications and collaboration, how the services developed. We're going to talk about Teams and Teams calling and give you information on how all of that works. We're going to drill down into the various services that Datalink Networks and SIPPIO provide to you, the end user. We'll get into the feature set of Teams and the technology behind Teams and Teams calling. And then Poly will be presenting their solutions that they have engineered and architected around the Teams platform. And then lastly, we'll get into a question and answer so that you can get all of your questions out and we can hopefully address all of them. So now I would like to introduce Ira Kuchek. Ira is the channel manager for SIPPIO to get this webinar started. Ira?
Don, thank you very much, and to the attendees, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Just want to kind of set the landscape for you. Hillary just touched that one. There you go. And just build out. Just want to share briefly with you kind of like the telco evolution that we've seen over the last 50 years. And again, 50 years is a long time, but there's three distinct eras that we've seen evolve to get us to the present day. So the first one is the premise era. That was typically started in the 1970s, went up to about 2000 or so. And in that environment, it's one that I come from, by the way, just for reference, but it's where businesses like yourselves would go ahead and purchase or lease a telephone system, also known as a PBX, and it would reside at your business's office, on your premise, as they say. And like I say, that ran for about 30 years. Then we moved into the VoIP era in the early aughts. And by the way, going back to the premises era, that's where you had a telephone network and a data network, two separate networks. And what's interesting, when we got into the VoIP era, that all changed a bit. And what I mean by that is voice, as we knew it, became an application residing on the data network, which also helped lay the foundation for the next era. But more importantly, instead of having two networks in your business, a dedicated telephone network and a dedicated data network, there was now just one network. So now we kind of move forward into the collaboration era. And so now we've got this one network, the data network, where voice is an application on the data network. And in fact, voice has evolved to collaboration. We do that today almost unconsciously. We're IMing people, we're sharing a file, we're doing a presentation, whatever. But voice is now part of that. And that's what's got us to a very neat space. Now, what's really interesting about these last 50 years as we look at it, just the terms of the sheer numbers of people involved, how long it took to get there in the premise era, it took us about 50 years to get to approximately 750 million users. We're going to have those same number of users in the collaboration era, but it's going to happen in single-digit years, much like we've seen take place in the last couple of years. Hillary, if you could advance the next slide, I'll give you some numbers that kind of back that up. So take a look at this just for a moment. There's these numbers go back to, I think, the early part of this year. There are approximately 260 million Microsoft 365 users out there, of which 30,000 users are being added per month, and there are approximately 145 million daily active users in that space, and these are Teams users as well. And so now Teams really becomes the mainstay of your work environment, but also we've seen that work environment change a bit, right? I mean, not to over-rotate on the impact of COVID in the workplace, but that truly has had a very significant impact. Much the case where we either have a lot of people working from home, people wanting to work from home, or we have a hybrid environment, and Pat's going to talk to the hybrid environment a little bit later, where you're pretty much work is work. It's not a question of it's an office or it's at home, it's just work, right? So that we see all that taking place, very dynamically and very quickly, which again will get us to that very, very large number of collaborative users. Hillary, if you could advance, please. Right. And actually, this is a poll question. So Hillary, I'm going to defer this to you and how you want to run the poll. So go ahead and just put that up there.
Yes, so if everyone can just answer the poll question through the chat, does your organization currently use Microsoft Teams? Some of the answers can be yes, but only as a collaboration or web conferencing platform. Yes, you already use Microsoft Teams as a phone system, or no, your organization does not currently use Microsoft Teams.
All right, we'll give that a second just to run the polls because that'll help us kind of guide our conversation for the next few moments or so.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. All right, and like I said, we'll take a look at those poll results a little bit later. But let me now talk to you a little bit more about Teams and more in particular Teams calling. So as I was indicating, we moved from this voice era into the collaboration era, and now Teams is a centerpiece of everything that we do in our workplace. And again, this is a typical screen that you'll see in a Teams environment. Lots of different things there. But let's specifically take a look at Teams calling. So Hillary, the next slide, please. Okay. So the nice thing about Teams calling is in this environment, you now have this on your desktop, you have this on your laptop, you have it on a tablet, you've got it on a mobile device, etc. And the beauty of it is you've got everything that you need to do in your workplace, pretty much every place, across all your devices, that is. And what this allows you to do is have that same experience on whatever device. Another interesting thing about this is, okay, this is now your phone system, right? So you've got essentially all of it right there, and it's in the cloud. So in the past, where you have had to have, again, that separate network and a separate piece of equipment, it's now right there on whatever device you happen to be working on at that particular moment. There's a couple of benefits to that are kind of subtle that I wanted to call out. So since that phone system is now in the cloud, you're not maintaining it. You're not having to go back into the phone room and do different things to it. It's all maintained in the cloud. In this case, the actual application is maintained by Microsoft. So you don't have to worry about that headache there. And then when you want to make changes, to individual users or set up different call routing or things of that nature, Datalink is certainly there to help you do that. Some of that you do yourself, but Datalink is more than happy to have you do that. And now you can go from a chat session, with a colleague into a telephone call or into a conference, very, very, very easily. So that's a really neat thing about that. The important takeaway from that for your businesses, it eliminates a dedicated staff to do that on your end. It gives you a lot more flexibility, and of course, it frees up your staff to do other things that are, greater value to your business. So again, making you more efficient, more effective. Hillary, next slide, please. So here's what the Teams calling looks like. It's very consistent with what you may have seen with other applications or in a PBX world, because you've got all these features right at your fingertips. For example, you've got, as you see on the screen there, you've got a list of contacts. You have access to your call history. So if you've called someone has called you, and you want to call them back, it's relatively recent, you just go to history, select the number, boom, you dial it. You've got a dial pad there. So for example, let's say you initiate a number to a company or a business and they've got an auto attendant. You don't have to worry about, well, how do I pick this up, or press 1 or press 2. You've got a dial pad right there, so you can select that. And then as an individual user, you can go ahead and change your individual settings. Maybe you want your calls to go to voicemail, or hey, something just came up, you got an important project taking place, and rather than the calls going to voicemail, you want them to go to Pat, or you want them to go to Don, or someone else within your business. You can just select that there, or maybe you want to send a call to another number. I know that sounds very, very basic, very simple, but in the old days, the one that I come from, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to go ahead and contact the administrator for the phone system, or you'd have to have this kind of security and this type of access. The point about all this, it gives you, the end user, much, much more control over your communications, and it's done in a much more simplified fashion. So we see that as a real significant benefit for you. And speaking of which, to talk about evolution, Hillary, could we go to the next slide? So some folks in the past, if you came out of, say, Microsoft Office Communicator or Skype for Business or potentially some other Microsoft calling platform, you might have felt that it was limited. And that would be a fair statement. But if we looked at how Teams has evolved, it's really quite comparable and in many respects somewhat more advanced than the previous, fixed communication systems that we're used to doing. By no means are we going to quiz you in a poll or ask you to list any or all of these features to get a prize, but the point here is it's a very, very robust phone system. And that's just what they currently have today. There are some additional features planned for the balance of this year as well as next year. And Microsoft, given who they are, they put a lot of time and money and effort into not only to get it to where it is today, but also to where they will be going in the future. So the point here is it's continuing to become more robust, and many more features will be forthcoming. So that's a really, really good thing for you guys, because it's investment protection, not so much in the context of, hey, I'm spending X amount of dollars to purchase something, because you're not. It's all done as a service in the cloud, but it's a continually evolving platform, and that's a real big benefit for you guys as a whole. Next slide, please, Hillary. Okay, so here we've got another poll.
All right, so what is prohibiting your organization from migrating to Microsoft Teams or a cloud-based phone system? I think over time with our clients, we currently hear, the cost is too high to switch to a cloud-based phone system. They're not interested in Microsoft Teams as a cloud-based phone system, or they simply don't have enough internal IT resources to complete a project. So John, hopefully in the next couple of slides, you can kind of address how Datalink Networks can help address some of these issues.
Don, you're muted.
Sorry about that, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's talk about Datalink Networks, Incipio, and our partnership. We are a managed service provider. Datalink serves the entire United States, and we work with companies on the larger size of the SMB market, and then also the SME or mid-market companies. We've been around for over 30 years. And we are a gold partner in those 4 competencies that you see on the right-hand part of your screen. We're going to be gold this year in Azure and also in Microsoft Security as well. So we've been partnering with SIPPIO for the last couple of years. And the reason that we like SIPPIO is, in looking at all of the Microsoft partners, SIPPIO offers very, very good plans that are very flexible. And most importantly, for all of you out there, can provide a lot of the services that in the past would have necessitated additional equipment. And we love that. So we'll get into what that means as we go forward. So next slide, Hillary. So want to go over some of the Microsoft services that we provide. We obviously do a lot of Microsoft Office 365 licensing and migration. We can take multiple domains and collapse those into a single domain. We can do just straightforward migrations. We've been doing that for over 5 years now with both Microsoft 365 and also Office 365. We have a product called our Microsoft 365 Health Check Assessment, which we are really focused on. It gives us a baseline of your tenant if you are in Office 365, and what we can derive from that are ways that you can save money on licensing. In our own internal history, we've found statistics that show that there is about a 20% savings from just having the right management tool sets in there on licensing, both eliminating inactive and underused licensing, and then also allowing us to make recommendations on different license bundles or different a la carte services. So we can really fine tune your license spend. We can also look at the tenant security settings, which is a really big deal. And in any Microsoft 365 tenant, you have about 50 different security settings. We'll review all of those with you and make recommendations on different settings to employ to up your security posture, but not necessarily inconvenience a lot of the users, which is a big deal as well in many organizations. We also, let's go back. Let me finish that real quick here. We do Azure cloud migrations, proof of concept, and then mostly, very importantly, the Microsoft Teams voice trial. Most of our clients want to kick the tires, so we offer up a trial on Microsoft Teams, and we allow them to test out SIPPIO services, the Microsoft voice, and then if they like it, we can move forward with them. So let's get into what that means. It's a 30-day Microsoft Teams voice trial. We'll provide up to 10 seats of Teams voice licensing. That's at no charge. We'll provide 30-day trial of 10 seats of calling plan provided by SIPPIO. So that essentially is 10 DIDs and dial tones that you get with that trial. And then we'll provide you 4 Teams certified devices. You get to pick. We would encourage you to pick both handsets and or headsets. Headsets are becoming much more popular in a Teams environment because people want the mobility. And then we'll provide the 8 hours of engineering labor. What we'll do is we'll look at the setup of all of those 10 users, and we can also, because it's a cloud service, build an auto attendant that not only captures what you're doing today, but might be an improvement of where you would like your auto attendant to go before we actually do any of the phone cutovers. So you can test it before it's actually put in use, which is great. Next slide. The 365 health check, again, we uncover unused and unassigned licenses. We also look at who is administering the Office 365 services, and we see routinely that too many people are in administrative roles that don't belong in those administrative roles. That presents a security risk. We look at the password expiration policies, and we look at the password the types of password setups that you use, and we'll come back to you and recommend, generally speaking, Microsoft best practice around this. We also look at multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is something that Microsoft is strongly recommending for most organizations, but what we're really seeing is that it's being used in cases where there is more at risk. So it's awfully difficult for organizations to employ it universally, but it is very important when you have certain high-level people or certain topics that involve money. We want that extra layer of security. And then we also can provide guidance around compliance. Most organizations have to follow compliance, and in the compliance world, you have NIST, you have ISO 27001. In the medical world, you have HIPAA and HITRUST, and there are also brand new compliance mandates for K-12 schools that have just been introduced. So we can provide guidance around that and help you make sure that your 365 services are in compliance today. Next.
Well, hey guys, thanks, Don, Ira. So Pat Piewarczyk, I am the head of channel business development for the Americas for Poly. If you're not familiar with Poly, we've been around 60 years in total. We merged 2 companies together, Polycom, leader in voice and video, as well as Plantronics, leader in headsets. So really, when you look at it, we are a company of collectively 60 years in voice, video, and headsets. And we also stitch all that together with some great device management. So next slide. Thanks, Hillary. So when it comes to what's going on in the marketplace now, you as a partner, customers making this transition to Teams, what we're finding is that, and I think it was mentioned earlier, Ira might have mentioned it, right? Work is no longer a place, right? Where you do your work is irrelevant. People are working at home, people are working in the office, some people are doing both. So you really need to start thinking about the experience and what are the devices that allow you to work in the best way. What is your work style? What is that persona that you're driving and how you work? So we have devices that are in high quality of voice, video, and headsets that make up our portfolio that really drive that experience. And as you can see here, we have certified Teams devices in our phones and speaker phones. We have a 15-year plus partnership with Microsoft. We co-sell, co-develop, and co-market with them. So when you look at our portfolio, we have the largest certified portfolio for Microsoft Teams. And we have multiple different devices that really drive that work style for the user, whether you're a manager and require a manager's phone in the CCX 600, or whether you're a knowledge worker and you only need a different type of experience for what you do day in and day out. We have devices that meet that need. And then as well as your conference room and personal speakerphone devices, we have those as well here. As you can see in our Poly C60, it really drives the conference room, and some of our other devices that are conference room devices too, based on the size of the room, as well as personal devices like our Poly Sync 20. So lots of different devices that meet the need for how you work. Next slide, we'll show you a little bit more about what we're doing in the personal headsets space. So once again, a leader in headsets for many years, and we have many different devices that match up your persona or work style to the device that you want to use. We actually even have a product selector and a survey that can be taken to really drive you to what is the right device for you. So as you can see here, many different devices, and I know Ira and Don use these religiously, I would say, and these really enhance the experience that you're using every day with how you work, whether you're a road warrior on the road and leveraging our 5200 Voyager headset, and you want that ability to dock, as you see here in the UC version at the top left of the screen, or if you have like the 6200, which I use, right? I got dual ear opportunities, either one ear or two ears. I decide when I need to leverage that. So we've got lots of different devices that will assist you in matching how you work day in and day out. Next slide, please, Hillary. Wrapping it all up is really video. So we have many different devices that really drive that video experience for you, the user, or the office as well, right? Conference rooms, and really understanding what are those Microsoft Teams solutions. You'll see here the top version is really our Microsoft Teams room, and we recently just launched a new version as well, so I don't want to confuse anything, but look at, we have a refreshed portfolio where the compute could be either a Lenovo compute or a Dell compute. So just hot off the press is something we just rolled out just this week. The middle section is our Teams experience on Android. So we have different ways to really drive the experience that you're leveraging in the office. And then we have a whole slew of personal devices that are also certified for Teams that drives how you work at home or hybrid. One thing to also note, when you look at our entire portfolio and something that's very differentiated, we have the ability to leverage many different phases of where you are in that Teams experience, that journey. We have many people that have not, that have not converted to Teams devices, but they're going to Teams. So you might have older devices that need to come along for the journey now before you go to a certified Team device. So we have video interop that provides you the ability to leverage some of those older standard video devices and help you transition when you're ready to refresh that. So we have a full portfolio, voice video headsets, interop, as well as device management. We won't spend too much time on that, but we have the ability to assist you in your personal and your room devices that really makes that experience equitable for anyone. And that's kind of key when you look at where people are working today, right? It's no longer work is a place, but if you're at home or you're in the office, you want high quality devices on that Teams experience to drive whether you're at home or in the office. It really shouldn't matter, but you want to be able to be heard and seen no matter where you're at. And that's something that is critical in this transition to Teams, right? Everyone wants to be heard. If I'm an SVP at home, working at home, and I don't plan to go back to the office anytime soon, and I'm joining meetings, I want to make sure that my message is heard on quality devices, and I don't want to be treated as a second-class citizen because I work at home. So everyone needs to be equal, and I think that equitable experience is what is most needed going forward. Guys, that's it for me from a Poly perspective.
No, Pat, thank you very much, and I'll take it here. Just spend a minute or two talking about how we do things with Incipio, and then I will turn it back over to Don and Hillary. So this slide's might be a little bit busy for some or a bit of an eye chart, but let me just simply explain to you. What it really illustrates is that in the SIPPIO environment, which is the backbone of the calling plan for Teams, for you guys, we have an application resides in Microsoft Azure, and all of our carrier services, the ability for you to place and receive calls to and from your Teams tenant, also reside in Azure. And the reason why that's significant is, as you can see here on the left, in the globe view, so to speak, we're in all these data centers where I think we're in A+ of the Azure data regions today, and that's continuing to grow over time. And it's fully meshed, and it's without a lot of technical jargon here, it's high availability. So the point here is we could lose the US data center, we could lose the data center in the UK or in South Africa or wherever it might happen to be, and the calls will continue to be processed, continue to fail over to all these regional data centers. So that's one thing there. And again, we, SIPPIO, are doing the heavy lifting for you there. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to build out a redundant network, and that's one of the messages that I wanted to leave you with. In addition to that, if you think about, you might be in a particular industry, as Don mentioned, where you have to take compliance into account, and everybody obviously is concerned about security these days. So the security, the compliance, the resiliency, the redundancy, the high availability, all of that is managed by and executed by Microsoft. So we've built our application and our carrier services on top of that Microsoft Azure network. So yourselves and Datalink, most importantly, don't have to worry about, hey, is this thing going to stand up? It's a very, very robust network, and Teams is, is a big application. Microsoft's got a lot of investment there. So we continue to piggyback off of that. And the other thing is, let's say, hey, your company either buys another company or you get acquired by a company, and you need to stand this up. It's really quite simple. The folks at Datalink would call us and say, hey, look, we need to add another 100 users for this particular company, or, oh, by the way, this company now has an office in Europe and they want their data to reside only in the European data center. These are things that we do for you, and we have built that into the architecture of our platform. So again, I don't want to go too deep on the technical side, but I want to let you know that pretty much wherever you're going, we can go with you. We have this elastic scaling that makes it very, very, very easy to add people as you grow up, or if for some reason you divest an organization, we can separate that out as well. So that's a real key thing for us. And I just wanted to thank everybody and leave you with one bit of trivia that, Pat, I thought you would have mentioned. But, who was the company whose headset was used on the moon? And that was a Poly headset. So that's a really key thing there. Pat, I'd like you to comment on that for a minute.
I would agree that, yes, I forgot to mention it. And yes, you are correct. That is an accurate statement, Ira. And you're right, I didn't mention it. We do so many webinars right now. I can tell you, I can give you lots of data points. That is a big one. And you're right. Thanks for mentioning it, Ira. But yeah, we're the first headset to go to the moon, and our astronauts leveraged a Poly headset at the time, Plantronics. And yeah, that's true.
All right, let me turn back to Don and Hillary to answer any questions and wrap things up for you. Thank you very much.
Right, so going right into our Q&A, we want to ask the audience if you guys have any questions, and if you do, please go ahead and submit it through the chat. Just kind of to get us started, for both Don and Ira, what type of support do you think a client would receive with SIPPIO and Datalink Networks going into a Microsoft Teams voice implementation?
I can start that. We've done quite a number of these Teams voice implementations with SIPPIO, and I think the big thing is that you want to know before you buy what you're getting, and that's where I think we've made it pretty easy with the Teams proof of concept trial, where you not only can get the licensing, but you get the SIPPIO service, and then our engineering team will have calls with you, and we will understand what are the communication goals you're trying to accomplish, and we'll build that trial around the goals that you want done to prove out. So it's really a try before you buy type of package.
Yeah, let me just add to what Don said. 100%, accurate there. And then the other thing that we do is with the Datalink team is our team, our project management team, works very, very closely with the engineering team at Datalink. So Datalink would come to us and say, hey, customer ABC wants to start a trial on Tuesday or whenever it might be. Once we do the paperwork, which is nominal, we go ahead and set up a project management kickoff call. We ascertain we're going to go with new numbers, we're going to port numbers, whatever it might be. Test the integrity of the connection to the customer's team's tenant. And once we've done that, you're literally up at that point. And it's a very, very quick process. And we just kind of take it in a phased approach, and we're very thorough with what we do to make that all happen. Hillary,
I was going to say, you may want to comment on just the support of analog devices and the support of E911, because that again is a very big one. It's something that was done manually before, but not now.
Yeah, no, great point, Don. Thanks for bringing that up. So we include E911 support as part of the package that you get from SIPPIO. So what that means is when an employee at your office or building dials 911, that's going to go to us as a service provider. We in turn extend that out to the local public safety access point to contact people. And let's say if you've got remote workers, in the database, we build into that, where their address is. So there's really, no confusion as to who's supposed to go where, because it's not uncommon for a company, let's say they're based in Los Angeles, but you've got people working, some other part of the country. We just put that into the database. These are questions that we ask as part of the project management activity to get you stood up. Don made another very good point about analog devices. Lots of companies have things, whether they're door opening devices, paging systems, any number of other things that analog devices are still used for today, very valid use, by the way. And we integrate that in a couple of different ways, depending upon what the device is. We may just have a simple adapter there if it's just one or two, or on the other hand, let's say you've got a ton of analog telephones in a warehouse that you don't want to change. We understand and respect that. And so in conjunction with Datalink and our partner Audio Codes, we have gateways that go ahead and integrate those legacy analog devices into your team's environment. Hillary, I'll turn it back to you. I think there was another question.
Yes, and I do see one question coming in. So will my organization need to purchase new devices for it to be compatible with Microsoft Teams Voice?
Pat, why don't you take that and I'll follow.
Yeah, I can take that. So the answer is yes and no, depends on what is that experience. So if you have Teams calling and you're leveraging your laptop, then a headset would be appropriate for that experience. And obviously certified Teams headsets are great because they invoke that Teams experience from the device. If you're using desktop handsets, then yes, the absolute answer is yes as well, because you want to have that Teams robust experience. So Teams certified devices for desktop phones is critical.
Okay, and then just to kind of close us off, what is the difference between kind of direct routing or a calling plan, and kind of how would you suggest an organization go about deciding between the two?
Yeah, let me take that question, and Don, certainly you jump in as well. So with direct routing, essentially what you're doing in direct routing is putting some equipment on your premise. Typically it's a session border controller, and then you're getting some SIP trunks and then connecting that into the Teams tenant that's in the cloud. Certainly it's doable, but it's really kind of a legacy architecture, meaning it's old school, for lack of a better term, and it requires a lot of heavy lifting and scheduling and project management and things of that nature. And then what we do at SIPPIO is really, it's a calling plan. We of course, OEM that are put that under our label. And what we do there is we've taken the SIP trunks and the session border controller, and we have virtualized all of them into the Microsoft Azure environment. And that's the real benefit to you for a number of reasons. A, you don't have to worry about, hey, how many SIP trunks do I need, and capacity and things of that nature, because it's highly elastic, as we mentioned earlier. It scales very nicely, and it's, and Don will resonate with this as well, but we can turn it up in a matter of a couple of days. And for a lot of companies, they may find themselves in a situation, hey, they're moving, their current provider says, no, we're canceling, we're doing this, or something broke. And you need to respond rapidly, and that's one thing that we're extremely good at, which is the speed to implementation and deployment. So those are some advantages to that. Don, anything to add?
Well, I will say one of the clients that we're working with, they're utilizing Teams to really cut back on their cell bill. And because they're highly mobile, they use mobile devices, and they've downloaded the Teams app. A lot of their calls were between people using cell phone services. So there's ways that you can use this platform to save money, but you also have so much more with the Teams being a digital hub. It gives you a lot of different opportunities to really better communicate. The other point that I'll make is that when you're on Teams, you can communicate across companies. And we're doing that with some of our customers that are on Teams. We're IMing them. Yep. And that is a productivity enhancement for sure, because everyone's busy. No one likes to be interrupted with a phone call. So it's a way to get more information out and to your partners and to your vendors and so forth. So it's another benefit of Teams.
Oh, great point. Thank you.
All right. All right, so thank you so much for everyone who came today to listen to us. As a follow-up, please contact Datalink Networks today for more information. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with one of our representatives to go over Microsoft Teams voice trial or Microsoft 365 Health Check, we will send you a $50 Amazon gift card after completing the call. You can contact us in our email, phone number, or website. As well, make sure to look out for the follow-up email where we will announce the winner of the Poly Sync 20 Bluetooth speaker. And thank you so much for everyone for listening.
Perfect. Thank you all.